Today, the news business online is crazy broken,
Does Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg really want to fix it?
and Twitter is on the defensive while the White House goes on the attack.
I'm Alexis Cordato, and this is Future Forward.
And I am Steven Rosenbaum. Let us launch. Hey, Alexa, how are you?
Hey, Steve, happy 100
I know. I
episode.
didn't even bring a cake or a candle or anything.
It's okay, because there's just so much to talk about. We don't
And,
even have time to celebrate.
well,
The internet is on fire.
maybe I'll bring a cupcake and a candle next week, and we'll just push it forward a week. But before we get started, a huge thank you to our friends at IEEE Spectrum. They are providing us with the third chapter of today's show about deep fakes and an audit with some data that will shock you, or not. But today, we can't not dig into Zuckerberg because honestly, he was everywhere this week. I mean,
And
he
the week
was in.
before,
Well, yeah. Week just
Georgetown
passed.
to NYC. It's been
Um,
everywhere.
and I guess I figure if you're that guy and you're in that role and you're going to be, doing 4 or 5 big public things, including Congress and a thing with the Wall Street Journal and Dow Jones and all this stuff, you'd think that you'd be pretty well prepared.
Yeah, you'd think.
But not so much as it turns out.
How can you be prepared, though, when you're just wrong?
Well, that's a fair question, but so we'll do this in order. The first article, the first headline is this, interestingly enough, Fox News article. I'm not sure we've ever had Fox News on the podcast before, so I guess this is the first time for everything. But the headline is Mark Zuckerberg says Facebook News will cover Facebook objectively. They have to cover it objectively. What the hell is he talking about?
Well, because like Bloomberg, for example, doesn't really cover Michael Bloomberg.
Well,
Like they're
but Facebook News isn't going to have reporters. It's just going to be an aggregator. This is the news tab. So when they say they have to cover it objectively, I'm just not sure. Like, I mean, I read it twice to try and understand who by they he means will quote cover it objectively. I mean, I guess News Corp, maybe.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was basically in response to, for all we know, part of the media strategy, the media relations strategy was someone on the Facebook team actually contacted Fox News and said, "Oh, we're we're allowing this to happen, or like we're okay with this coverage." And it's really sort of a non-story. It's a
And
non-story story.
and 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 then I mean, it's like dominoes, right? It gets worse and worse and worse, right? So then it comes out that Facebook is going to consider Breitbart as a trusted source.
Right. And that's because it's part of an international committee that is determining the standards.
Who are these people on this international committee?
I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a third party uh, group of constituents,
I,
not Facebook employees, not US news media,
I,
but
I don't make
the
many
international committee.
I don't make many predictions on this podcast, but I'm going to make one right now. I think that the era of Facebook being able to hide behind the whole safe harbor provision, Communications Act thing is officially over as of. I'm gonna put a flag in the ground, plant a flag today, and say as of now. Like
Mm,
they've run at that runway has it was a nice run, and I understand why it was important, but it's just now really a pure fiction.
yeah.
And and then maybe we should just get right to um, the clip of the week and play just a little bit of audio from the AOC uh, Zuckerberg congressional conversation because it's just kind of hard to. This whole conversation kind of pivots on that. So I'm just going to play a clip of audio. Just here we go.
Would I be able to run advertisements on Facebook targeting Republicans in primary saying that they voted for the Green New Deal? I mean, if you're not fact-checking political advertisements, I'm just trying to understand the bounds here. What's fair game?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I think
so. You don't know if I'll be able to do that.
I think probably.
So I just played a little clip where she asks a very clear question, which is, can I run an ad against an opponent saying that they're in favor of the Green New Deal when they may not be? And Zuckerberg responds with the robotic congresswoman ... and then says, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
But
that was true for all, really, the majority of the questions. I can't answer. I can't recall. I don't know.
So, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Trying to be in the middle of lots of yelling and finger pointing between two sets of politicians when, Trump is saying, blah, 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 Biden's son, blah, 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 and Biden is saying back, you should take that down because, I get that he, that's a lose-lose for Facebook, right? I mean, either answer is going to make someone super angry.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I don't know is maybe the worst answer I've ever heard in the history of mankind.
Yeah, I would much rather say, I'm not. Well, I don't know. I mean,
the answer is I do know. We made a decision. And really, what this comes down to is that the idea that they're not going to fact check politicians is indefensible. It's indefensible.
Yeah, but to play devil's advocate, they're saying, what is fact? What is fiction? Who are we to decide? I mean, there was even a thread from the head of Instagram a few days ago questioning on Twitter, do you really want an organization of our size and scale making these types of decisions?
Well,
and it goes back to, a few things, which is we don't need an organization of this size and this scale anymore. It's probably the best case for breaking it up. But then I don't know why they even are in the game in the first place. It would just be easier if they said no political ads, like TikTok.
So really, if you listen to what the Center for Humane Technology says in answer to this, they have this really good answer, which is free speech is not the same thing as unlimited amplified speech. And the problem that they lay out, and Yael, who was on the NYC Media Lab stage 3 weeks ago and said, I thought very clearly, if the tuning of Facebook so clearly is about engagement and clicks, and all of that, the more salacious and horrible and shocking and kind of controversial a thing you put on the page, the more people are going to stop and read it or look at it or share it. So essentially, we've got this now massive platform that is biased in favor of salacious garbage. And now we're saying to politicians, by the way, pay us and we'll amplify your salacious garbage.
Yeah. But I think, right, and what's disappointing is Facebook is saying, well, we can't tell the difference, or we don't want to determine if something is garbage.
So I'm going to make a proposal. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've tested it amongst some people to see if there's some secret reason I'm misunderstanding things. We can debate it because it's a little controversial. But, if Facebook is saying, by the way, political ads make up a rounding error small amount of our revenue, why not just ban them?
Right.
Say we're not taking political advertisement.
Yeah, TikTok is doing this now.
Right. So, and I'll tell you the pushback I got from some people. But wouldn't that be an easy button to push that would make this whole problem go away for them?
Yeah, it's also the fact that political ads make such a small fraction of their total ad revenue. It's trivial. It would be one thing if political ads were, 50% of ad revenue, but it's not even close to that. Maybe 3%.
So the pushback I got from someone smart was, you have to look outside of the borders of the U.S. and there are political parties and voices around the world for which taking away their ability to pay to advertise would make them significantly less able to speak to emerging audiences.
Yeah, but like that's both good and bad in the sense that if you take um, foreign entities where I don't know, like who's to say if it's a good leader or a bad leader?
Yeah, no, I've always defended Zuckerberg. Some of my friends, you've always been far more critical. But last week for me, given that he knew he was going to be in front of Congress and knew that he was going to, AOC was terrific and fierce and pointed, but none of the questions she asked were like surprises. You didn't sit there and go, snap, I didn't think she was going to ask that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, like, either his team let him down and he just didn't prep and didn't get a good night's sleep, or they just rehearsed him on they rehearsed him on the rhythm. Congresswoman, comma, brief. And by the way, we don't have it pulled up, but Saturday Night Live did a brutal impersonation of him last night, and just
I was banking on the butt dial. I mean
yeah.
that felt like that was written. That was so easy.
I honestly, I just think they've decided that that he's just not even funny anymore. Giuliani's just like he's
It's sad.
passe. All right,
Yeah.
but let's keep going on Zuckerberg because there's two more headlines that are worth talking about. So there's a headline from the Inquirer. It says in New York, Zuckerberg talks of Facebook news and hardships on local news in the digital age. Um, and this is the Facebook News tab, which I'd hoped to be able to have experimented with and talk about on today's pod, but turns out for whatever reason the Borg has determined that I am not yet to be given the News tab. Maybe you have it or you just haven't. I mean,
So this is the sad reality, not sad, but I'm liberating myself of all Facebook products. And so I went cold turkey on Instagram earlier this year, and I'm in the process of downloading all my Facebook data and deleting the account. And I also got rid of WhatsApp too, which was really yeah, it's hard because I it's used when I travel internationally. But I'm done. Last week was like the thing that broke the camel's back, the straw that broke the camel's back.
was there a moment? Was there like a when you were like, that's it?
Um, I mean, sort of been happening like all year, but I think, strength in numbers. My partner deleted his account. And so we've sort of been flip-flopped. I went cold turkey Instagram. I was on Facebook. He's on Instagram, but he's off Facebook. So, we're slowly making our way.
All right, we'll save for another time to talk about what behaviors replace it, because today we're going to keep going down the news path. Look, um,
It's too big. It's too powerful. It's too it's like it's not a place that I want to participate and engage. Period.
so the thing that I found shocking, I mean, literally, it was like Facebook did three big events last week, and they all kind of landed badly. So the Georgetown big free speech talk. I mean, I understood what he was trying to say. I understood what I mean. His thesis was free speech is inherently messy. We're not going away, and we want to be all in on giving people freedoms and let the community sort out how to filter that. I understood that as an argument. I don't think anyone bought it, but I thought he made that argument at least earnestly. Then I think the AOC thing, he just gets a zero on, shockingly. And in fact, the New York Times, there was an op-ed in the New York Times by one of their well-known tech writers who essentially said, maybe it's really time for him to hand the keys over. Like maybe this just isn't his job anymore. And I've always thought that was kind of snarky and mean, but this was written really genuinely and thoughtfully, and with some evidence to say, maybe it needs somebody else to steer it. Because if you can't answer questions like, am I allowed to lie on your platform and pay for it? That would seem to be a question. Even if you believe the answer is yes, you shouldn't have to say, I have to check with my team and get back to you on that. Like,
right, you either believe it or you don't.
yeah. And then the presentation at the Paley Center, which coincided with Breitbart being included in the news tab, also for me, I mean, yes, it's great that you're putting some money back in the pockets of publishers, but as we've learned with Facebook a couple of times before, they're very much fair weather friends about that. Some days they're giving them money, some days they're not. So, which brings me to the next, the Associated Press article, the Jeff Zucker quote, which, given the position they're in, and given some of the risks, I thought Zucker saying kind of simply, Facebook's ad policy is ludicrous. Was ludicrous is not a word you throw around unless you mean
No.
it.
Yeah.
And I like that. And I watched the CNN. They had an event called CNN. Was it Citizen? I think it was called Citizen. And Brian Stelter interviewed Zucker, not to be confused with Zuckerberg, just Zucker. And he was pretty spot on. So
yeah, I mean, it's a love-hate relationship that the media has with Facebook. I mean, the entire news feed endeavor is it's like you're doing deals with the devil at this point.
Yeah, and without any economic rationale other than how much will it take us to get your. I mean, it's interesting. Again, I haven't seen the news tab yet, but from everything I've read and looked at the pictures, it seems like the big player who's not signed up is the New York Times.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. All right, so let's move along to another guilty party in this end of the news business meltdown, and that would be Twitter.
This is sad. This Barron's article basically talked about Twitter stock dropping. They blamed a glitch in their software. Glitch was basically, I guess to summarize it, it prevented them from being able to measure and analyze ad performance properly and then relay that information to advertisers. And their stock took a hit. And rightfully so, right? I mean, that's so core to the Twitter experience.
I honestly read it twice and figured maybe you would explain it to me. So was their revenue down, or if it was just them telling?
I think it was a combination of both. So there was a slump over the summer in July and August, and then it picked up in September. And so they accounted for the slump. Maybe there was some seasonality in there, but they disclosed that there was an error in terms of the way their ads were being served and measured and reported on. And so, I mean, who's to say? Was it did the ad performance yield lower ad spend, or did the fact that wasn't performing yield advertisers not wanting to spend? Either way, the integrity of the platform was jeopardized, and so their stock took a hit.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Jack Dorsey went after Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, Jack can't say anything. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
He really needs to just kind of sit with this one out. I mean, I guess he can say whatever he wants, but the irony of him saying anything is really, I don't know, makes me feel all the feels.
Yeah, I have to say, I thought it was just pot calling kettle black times 1,000.
Yeah.
Really, you're Trump's platform to speak uncensored and viciously and basically flaunt your terms of service and threaten people and be sexist and racist and misogynist, and you feel okay about that? Like, I mean, do you think? Here's a question. Let's transport ourselves into the boardroom at Twitter, and let's imagine there was a conversation in which the investors and Jack said, "What would happen if we actually pushed the button and froze Trump out for, say, a week for terms of service violations?" Like, do you think they had that? Do you think they dare to even within the privacy of the boardroom have that conversation?
Yes. And then the outcome is the outcome, which is probably even sadder.
But do you think the answer is, at least for Jack, genuinely about the importance of political speech, or is it just we would lose so much fucking money we can't do it?
Yeah, it's money is the root of all evil. And if you look at Facebook and Twitter policies as of late, it all boils down to anything that jeopardizes the power, influence, and engagement within their ecosystems. Like, they're never going to do anything that jeopardizes that.
Yep.
That's it.
All right. So let's move along from the platforms to the White House itself. There was a fascinating, if not also incredibly salacious, Kellyanne Conway attacking a reporter. And, you know, here's why this story matters to me, for two reasons. Kellyanne Conway and her husband have been sparring in public for months about Trump.
Yeah.
This is not inside
It's not
her.
new.
What?
It's not new at all. It's like well known that she and her husband have a contentious relationship.
And the reporter reported that, and she said to him in a phone call that happened to be recorded, "Oops, I'm going to come after your family." Not the same thing, not even close.
No.
So here's my theory about what's going to happen next. You may have read that they've decided to cancel their subscription to the New York Times and the Washington Post.
It's so sad. It's so petty.
But the next button they're going to push will be far scarier. They're going to block. I'm making this up, so you either heard it here first, and I'm again looking in my crystal ball. They're going to block the New York Times and the Washington Post domain on all of the White House internet servers.
Wow, that's extreme. I mean, you could take it a step further. They'll ban any of them from stepping foot in participating in any function.
But different, right? Because that one they've already lost. They've banned two. They've taken away press credentials from CNN and from my friend Brian Karem. In both cases, they lost. But if they say we don't want people in the White House, I mean, as it is, I'm told that in the White House the only televisions are on Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
So they've already essentially done that and said the only thing you can watch is the newscast that says the things we want to say. So why wouldn't they say, look, we don't like CNN and we don't like the New York Times and we don't like, Washington Post, so we're going to just ban those domains on all of our White House computers.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's like, yeah.
Yep. I mean, canceling the subscriptions is a little silly because it's paper and you can't forward whatever. Anyway, so Kellyanne Conway, kind of as a stalking horse for the ongoing battle against free press, goes after this reporter. And by the way, it's a conservative reporter, interestingly enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's what's the enemy of the people. It's not enemy of the people press. All right. We've got about 4 minutes left. So anything else on the Facebook, Twitter, Trump week that will go down in infamy, or should we move on to deep fakes?
I think everyone should definitely revisit their online diet. Everyone should go on a Twitter and Facebook diet. That's my advice.
I think, a digital diet is a good idea. All right. So last but not least, this story that popped up from our friends at IEEE Spectrum about the world's first deep fake audit. Um,
Did
it,
this surprise you?
it did actually. Um,
Okay, what part? Let's break it down.
um, Given the fear and trepidation about deepfakes, the fact that they were less prevalent, at least now, with this audit than people thought they were going to be, on one hand was refreshing, like, oh, good, and then on the other hand, it was more like, okay, so we're just not there yet. Um, but they also, I mean, there were some problems with the audit. If you read into the data, they only did U.S. English sites. They didn't do the dark web, and they mostly ended up looking at porn.
Yeah, so 96% of the deepfake videos were pornographic, and then 100% of the pornographic websites were of women.
So,
There was nothing about that surprised me.
but you could make 2 phone calls and fix that in an hour. I mean, you know, putting men's faces on less impressive bodies would seem to be a public service.
Yeah.
I mean, I immediately thought of a political version of that, but it doesn't have to be political. It could be actors, it could be politicians, it could be celebrities or, rabble rousers of all
Look,
sorts.
so the thing, my sort of takeaway or thing that to leave listeners with is, here's a technology that, surveys like this will sort of say, oh, of course, this technology is harmful. It could be used for icky things online. It's not surprising what the applications are. But I hope that doesn't impede us, though, from having the technology advance, because if used properly, it could actually transform the advertising and marketing industries in ways that are for good. Like, if you think about, say, Gillette, which spends millions of dollars on spokespeople, like Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady cannot fly to a production studio in LA to basically film commercials or like 30-second Twitter clips or Instagram ads, right? But like deepfake technology should actually enable future production teams to actually create more content at scale. Like, think about that application. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about the Scorsese film The Irishman and about the fact that they de-aged, De Niro and made him young. And I was just thinking, so I assume there's a whole business that's already been scoped of talent agencies being able to license your image for a brand partnership or for a film at a certain age. And so I could say I want to license Alexa age 22, but if you want Alexa age 23, that's a different. Then you have to buy 2 years worth of Alexa. Like I mean, for actors, this all has to be deeply troubling. Like, if all of a sudden you get to a certain age and the only thing that's marketable is the young you and not the real age you.
Or it's like longevity in the sense that actors who always complain, especially women, that they can't get roles as they age. If, Renee Zellweger or Anne Hathaway, if their brand, their younger brand is marketable, appealing, and they can make money off of that, I mean, isn't that in some ways empowering?
No, I'm going to disagree with you about 10,000% on that. So, well, no, because if the choice is to have society begin to accept both women and men aging and their face changing and their body changing and their capacity changing and becoming more, connected with people at different stages in their life versus, no, we just want the perfect you. I mean, we went through that whole where people Photoshop people and their bodies got shrunk and women had these fake images of what they were supposed to, like, for all the women that can't be body morphed digitally into being perennially 27 years old, who actually have to deal with looking in the mirror, that's a terrible outcome, right?
I hear you. I guess what I think about is, as a woman, it's just a means to an end, right? You look at the porn industry, you look at the film and entertainment industry, you look at the tech industry. Who holds positions of power? Who are the people at the top? It's like usually white cisgendered men. In which case, like if women, the more women can earn and make and rise in the tops of the ranks. Again, if Anne Hathaway is making money off of her deep fakes and it allows her to create a production studio where she can hire and cast basically different standards of what is beautiful, smart, intelligent, marketable, etc., like that can lead to systemic change.
I'm not sure how this happened, but I think I'm making the feminist argument and you're making the marketing argument.
Yeah, probably. But I think there's an aspect of like marketing, which is powerful, especially if it elevates sort of disenfranchised groups into positions of power and influence.
All right, so let's put a pin in this with the caveat being deepfakes are still scary, but not so scary yet. And according to IEEE Spectrum and the new report, not quite the terrible thing that we're worried about. At least not like there's not going to be a convincing deepfake Donald Trump political ad or, by 2020 anyway.
Yet. Still early.
All right. So with that, we are out of time. What a totally fun birthday show. Have an excellent week. Stay dry, stay warm, and we will be back for show 101.
101. Dalmatian.
See ya.